If you have been dreaming of starting a permaculture project but don't have a clue where to begin, this video is for you. Here's a recording of one of my consultation sessions for some fine folks dreaming to escape the city and grow their own food.
All right, so I am here today with Debbie and EJ, who have gotten hit by some kind of inspiration to start moving towards a more nature-inspired way of living.
It all started really with inspiration when EJ got invited a few months ago when they first announced the lockdown or the quarantine. He got invited to help out on his friend's organic farm. And when he returned, he had no words. And I knew just a taste of what he meant. My soul has desired for a very long time to experience tending to the land and really, growing vegetables, growing our food, and regenerating soil. And all these things have been floating around for a while, but due to the nature of my work, it's very much online on the computer, so I'm indoors a lot. I don't get a lot of opportunities like this.
For a while, I've been thinking about getting out of the city, and then when the pandemic hit, I was like, okay, I really need to get out now. I'm sending out a prayer. Just being in touch with the land is like, I don't know, it's everything. I think it's everything.
Yeah,
it really is. Mother Nature has a way to teach us how to be human.
Yeah, exactly.
But until we actually engage with her in Mother Nature in an intimate way, where you're like up close in the soil and actually given an opportunity to just observe and interact and touch and smell, it's hard to even understand what that means.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're basically going to be investigating. We're going to be going through the steps that if you want to kick off a project of any type where you're going to be planting things and possibly harvesting things, what are the kind of things that you're going to start asking yourself in order to set up a project like that. So first things first is always location. The first thing I love to do when I have a project in mind is I'm going to go Google search this space. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to take a look that out. So the first thing we want to get a general sense of, it's good to know if there's large bodies of water nearby and what is around that area. So when we zoom in here, one thing we want to be mindful of when we want to grow food on a small scale for ourselves, at least, is that we're not entirely surrounded by fields, because there's a lot of toxicity with the pesticides being used and so on and so forth. You might be exposing yourself to health risks, big health risks. So what's beautiful in this location here is that we can see there's a lot of forests all around, and there's a body of water over here, really just neighboring. There seems to be a small stream going through the property here.
Yeah, there's a little pond, right?
Yeah, there's a river, a stream, yeah.
Little stream here.
Okay.
It's always cool too to look where does it come from? So I'm following this stream here. And it seems to come from, I'm not too sure, going back all the way here. So these are the kind of little things you want to start just being curious about when you're considering planting something on a property. So we see that this stream is attached to some bigger fields. So what does this tell us? Or you might want to consider, for example, rainwater collection barrels.
Yeah.
So instead of actually using that source, since we can see that it most probably has runoff from the big fields higher up, then you can actually, we can include in the designs that you're going to have a couple of bins outside that catch some rainwater, and then you can have that alternatively to be watering with.
Okay.
Now let's zoom in a little bit more. And the next thing that we want to be taking a peek at is orientation. So on Google Maps, this is here, there's a little compass in the bottom right corner, and the red tip is always pointing north. And what's very interesting when you're growing is you want to know where's the south. The south is kind of where you get most of the sun. So if that's north, then the south is down here. The whole thing is great. There's really not much obstructing the sun. And this whole bit of tree here is what we call a sun trap, which is even more amazing because if you want to grow certain things that actually need warmer temperatures, when you have a natural sun trap like this on the property, wow, then you even have a wider range of things that you can grow.
Cool.
Yeah, so this is a really beautiful location actually to be considering. Another great thing about this location to note is because you have trees, that means you have a lot of material to work with.
Oh.
A lot of natural materials already local to that area to be like helping with whatever it is that you guys want to be doing, like your soil ecology and so on. So this is kind of the main things that we're going to take note of. Like when you first have an idea, you want to take look at an aerial shot of wherever it is that you're planning. Even if it's a smaller property, even if it's like your apartment in the city, you can also just take a peek, like what's around, like for your balcony. You probably don't need the Google Maps for that, but these are similar considerations. The next thing we want to look at is going to be what is the vegetation naturally in that area?
Can you guys see? Yeah.
Yeah, so basically this location is roughly like around here.
Yeah.
My little cursor, it's like in this orange eco zone. So what do we have here as an eco zone? It's the mixed wood plains. The mixed wood plains is mainly comprised of the deciduous forest. So that means that the majority of the trees here have leaves that fall. What's amazing about that is that usually where you have deciduous forest, you have very fertile soil. So it's no surprise that this whole area is actually like cultivated. So now we know what kind of a forest is here and what ecozone does this area belong to. And then we want to know what is our hardiness zone. This is kind of like the range of climate for a specific area. And this tells you which plants, like you're going to be able to specifically find plants that love one type of hardiness zone versus another. And some plants literally can't live in other hardiness zones than the ones they're in. So if we're looking again, roughly where the project is, which seems to be somewhere around here. Yeah. We're in this like orange color, a little bit of the dark orange here.
Yeah. 6B, 6A.
So we're really looking at like 5B to 6B. So when you're choosing the varieties of things that you want to grow, you want to make sure that that's their hardiness zone. So they're going to be ultra happy there.
Yeah, EJ and I are foodies and we're vegetarians, so there's I don't think there's one vegetable we don't eat, right, EJ?
Okay.
We both love a lot of variety of vegetables.
Perfect. So one of the very cool things when you approach a type of growing project from a permaculture lens is that we see everything as like the interconnectedness of all things basically is kind of what permaculture, or the philosophy behind it, is about. So instead of just considering like planting rows of certain things, which you'd have to do in a commercial setting, we're trying to figure out how to put things together into families so that they're all like kind of working together. This is referred to companion planting oftentimes, or plant guilds. And I just call it like plant friends.
Yeah, I love that.
They're just like plant buddies.
I love that, yeah.
Yeah, I love it too. It's a really beautiful thing. And ultimately, we're just imitating literally what happens naturally if you just go walking in a forest. So when we're making gardens, we want three main things. So we want like the veggies that you're going to actually love to eat. Well, veggies or fruits or whatever that you're going to want to harvest. You're going to want like their buddy, like their best buddies, the ones that for some reason when that other vegetable or fruits next to it, it's just like it's going great.
Right.
It's feeling great, you know, things are jiving, the taste is enhanced, all that jazz.
Wow.
And usually they're going to have like these symbiotic things going on in the soil. That's why they enhance each other. You're going to want a series of other little friends that are bug repellents, that are crop covers. So those are the ones that will make sure that the soil stays nice and like all the moisture stays into the soil. You've got bug repellents, crop covers, cover crops, and nitrogen fixers. And most plants have multiple functions. So it could be and a bug repellent and a nitrogen fixer, for example. So at minimum, you would ideally put 3 plants together or more. You're going to want to think of like the main superstar, let's say a tomato. And then you're going to want to figure out, okay, the tomato is happy like who's the tomato's big buddy? So in the case of a tomato, tomatoes love to grow with peppers, and they also love to grow with onions. So those would be like the tomatoes like best buddy. Things that push away bugs that tend to attack tomatoes happen to be a flower called marigolds, and oregano is a really great repellent of the pests that usually attack tomatoes. So what's beautiful about guilds is you don't need to know in great detail exactly what bugs to avoid and just by putting a couple of things together that you know like each other, they're going to figure it out. In permaculture, the point is just simply to give the plants whatever support or organization they need so they can do their magic. So it's really like a collaboration, and that's where the whole notion of stewardship comes from, really. Another one that came to mind is a zucchini. Like, zucchinis are super delicious.
Yeah.
And it's also nice because they make a flour that you can eat.
Yeah.
Right? So zucchinis, who's their buddies? Oh, the buddies of zucchinis is radishes.
No.
So they're like really great buddies. They, the radishes happen to like also repel a lot of things that tend to attack the zucchini plant. Beans grow really well with the zucchinis and radishes because beans are nitrogen fixers naturally, and they are so easy to grow. Like all the things I'm naming now too are really easy to grow. Flowers that could be interesting that are also medicinal, also you can make teas with, that you can also eat and put in salads. Can be I don't know if you guys know what nasturtiums are.
Yeah.
All right.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys like peppery or mustard.
Yes.
Oh, not only can you eat the flowers, which taste amazing, the bees love them. So that's another thing that we're going to want to favor in any kind of design. Like everything in the design ideally should be edible also.
Yeah.
Another really beautiful ally is borage. Bushla, they're like maybe this big. Borage like is one of the most favorite flowers of bees, and you can actually cut off the flowers at the end of the season and dry them and make tea. And calendula, which are also medicinal. You can make salves for your skin with this just by making infusions with coconut oil, for example.
Yeah.
You can have it in tea. So there you guys already have also a zucchini guild. So then you can go into berries. Like strawberries grow really well in the climate of that area that you guys are considering. And things that grow well with the berries are spinach, daylilies. I don't know if you guys know that daylilies are edible. Flowers are edible. They have like like kind of a sweet lettuce taste.
Wow.
Yeah, those. And daisies. Daisies are also edible. They're really good. They're very delicious. So there's a little bit something to get you guys started, to get you guys thinking. I have a link for you guys where you can see which buddies go with what, and you can start playing around. So the next thing to consider when you already have like a little family of friends that you want to put together is then you're going to be looking into obviously their sun requirements, and you're going to be looking at their height. That's what's going to determine the positioning of all these things relative to one another. Oftentimes what's beautiful is once you have your selection of plants, then figuring out where to put them is going to kind of happen on its own depending on their needs. The other thing to consider is whether you want to do raised garden beds or plant directly in the ground. Now, to make that decision, you're going to want to go on site, obviously, and see what's growing. Generally, people call these weeds, but they're actually pioneer plants that have like amazing properties that settle there. So if you have a lot of pioneer plants, then it might be worth considering to do a raised garden bed. Now, because you guys have a lot of forest around, this can be like a really a low cost endeavor for you guys to actually set up, because there's always fallen trees. And you can literally just use the logs of the fallen trees to just kind of create the contour shape of the garden beds, for instance. And that is an amazing strategy. So a great way to invite mycelium to propagate all over your garden space is to actually have logs decaying as the contour of it. The next thing you want to do is you want to kind of eliminate that the weeds come through, right? And a really great way to do this by reusing things in our everyday lives is cardboard. So from now until you guys head out, if you know you're going to do raised garden beds, you can keep all manners of cardboard that come through. Just take off tape, take off staples, but all in any cardboard, as long as it's not waxy, you can just keep stacks of it. And you'll lay down the cardboard over the planting area. And you're going to water it. Now what this does is a number of really interesting things. Like, first of all, worms absolutely love the glue in cardboard because they use a starch-based glue. The second thing it does is that it actually kills the weeds.
Right.
And the third thing that it does is that it locks down moisture into the ground. So you'd want to put like a layer of compost, a little bit sparingly, a little bit everywhere. And then you can literally go out into the forest and you cover it with like all manners of like brown material. So like scrape off like fallen leaves that are decaying, scrape off branches that are broken down, and you cover it with that. And this is like essentially what we call the lasagna bed technique. In no time at all, our little worm friends will have busted through most of the cardboard and will start bringing the soil nutrients into the top, taking the compost, bringing it into the soil. So you're creating a really fertile soil and limiting like the propagation of the weeds. Like if there's still cardboard in the bottom, you can just make a hole and plant through there. So that's like one way to do a raised garden bed, like really there's very little purchasing of anything required. Any questions? I was like zooming through all of this.
No, like I think we're following every step of the way. Yeah. Yeah, I'm mostly just curious about the soil. That'll be on our side to research and figure out.
And it's good that you bring that up. I forgot to mention something. So there's something really cool that you guys can do when you head out there to get to do a soil analysis. So you're gonna obviously want to figure out about where you'd like to create your first garden beds and pick like 5-6 spots where you're gonna go fish out some soil. And you're gonna just take a mason jar, like I did an example here with some soil we have at home. You just take a mason jar, you fill your thing with about this much soil, and you fill it with water and give it a shake. And you're gonna leave this to settle for 3 days to a week. What's gonna happen is that naturally the heavier things in the soil are gonna be in the bottom, and then they're all gonna like make different layers. So here's like an example of a soil analysis I did on a project. And you can see here, there's really like different zones. So you'll be able to see this happen after a week letting it sit. And what's really cool is you can determine what type of soil you have based on this. And the reason why you want to have 5 samples is because like, you know, soil texture can definitely vary from one area to the next. But what you do after that is you take a ruler and you will measure like the height of the whole thing and then figure out, okay, like this zone here that's clearly different from this one and this one, like how much of a distance is it? And then how much of a distance is this? And then this. And soil is really kind of made up of 3 things. So you have sand, silt, and clay in soil. And you're going to want to know what's the composition based on the percentages of each one. So because you'll have the measurement of the entire length of this sample, and then what is the width of each layer, you can establish the percentage of each. And then there's this cool grid here that exists, which I'll link for you guys. When you put in all of your percentages, it will hit like a certain spot on this triangle. And it's going to tell you what's the soil type. So in this project, we had a very clay-rich space. So we had a clay loam, which is better than just having clay. And the ideal, what you want to be working towards when you're doing soil restoration is to have loam, which is really like smack dab, like pretty equal amounts of all of it. Oh, well, here, actually. This is the ideal soil. It's 20% clay, 40% silt, 40% sand.
So then is there also, do you guys put emphasis on the water too? Like, for example, my question was when you mentioned harvesting rainwater, my first feeling is like, wow, that's awesome. And then I was wondering, like, could sometimes the water the rainwater be too acidic in some cases for
Yes,
plants?
it's not the same everywhere in the world, but
Yeah,
here in Canada and in this part of Canada,
northeastern region. Yeah,
it's the northeastern region. We're very lucky because our rainwater is pretty good for plants. There's no problem. There's
okay.
not overly
Like
acidic.
final question on the water for when when we are watering. Another thought that came to mind, often when I eat organic vegetables, I'm often thinking, like when I buy organic vegetables at the store, one of the thoughts I'm thinking about is like, what about their water? You know, what if they're using like, you know, if their water has heavy metals or do
Yeah.
you ever like work with a water testing kit or anything like that?
The notion of approaching this sort of thing with in a permaculture angle is that it's like super accessible. So there's no like
Right.
high technologies and stuff like that. But I can tell you that, for instance, if you're going to the store and you buy like organic carrots and they're bitter as hell, chances are they're not growing in healthy soil. Now, if
Right.
the soil's not healthy because the water is not good or whatever it is, taste, sweetness is an indication of a healthy soil.
Okay.
So, like really good, well-produced veg can actually like sit on the counter like so much longer before it ever goes bad, which is also really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Makes
these
sense.
carrots we
The
bought,
life force like locked in.
yes, life force. So it was like optimal life force was in the being, like in this case,
Wow.
the vegetable. And isn't that what we would rather, you know, like be consuming?
Yes.
Like, isn't that like you are what you eat, you know, like that sort of mentality. So it's
Yeah.
interesting how we're producing right now on a global scale, like food that is so nutrient, like void of nutrients. We're like overfed and undernourished. I like to always tie in a little bit like that, you know, a lot of times when we're called to work with nature, there is a call for expansion of yourself, actually. See, so I was just wondering if, for both of you, like if you felt like sharing, is there something within you that's inexpressed that you feel that this project will allow to come to the surface for you?
Mm. It's a beautiful question.
For me, it's like unlocking a deep wisdom that we all have, and I feel like that's like a percentage of like our existence that's like locked. It's not like being activated.
Oh, love it. It's an activation that you seek.
As much as I do want to affect them myself, I have a deep concern with like other people feeling that feeling as well.
And how
So
would you
by
describe
me
it?
doing it, I think that I can, you know, lead by example.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. I completely understand. And just play with me for a moment.
Yeah.
We get out of our heads for a minute and you just tune into
Mhm.
your body, you tune into your energetic space.
Yeah.
You think about that activation. A, like what's the color of it? And B, like where is it in your body?
I think it's all colors for me.
I knew EJ would say that. He's multicolorful, this boy. Yeah.
Prismatic.
He's electric, so he's seeing a lot of color.
Where is it? I think it's full body, full color. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. I kind of had like just like a hint of like something that's to do with the whole chakra, the whole spine.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm saying full color, because it's all, if it's all chakra, then it's all the colors.
I see where you're going. Amazing. Thank you for that share. I love like kind of questioning people about that. Debbie, what's coming up for you?
Yeah, I think for me the first thing that came up was that I don't know if inherently if we all feel this, but I'm such a purist, and I think ultimately I'm always desiring the most pure lifestyle, like the most pure moment to moment. It's also about telling a true story and connecting people to their like core, you know. But ultimately, I think as we grow and mature and live through life and get humbled by life, I think more and more there is a desire and to walk the path of true, humble simplicity. Yeah, it's really that simplicity that has been calling me.
Oh, you guys go ahead. And then if you dropped into your like get out of the headspace, take a deep breath, and drop into the energy field and drop into your body. You think about what wants to be expressed in you through this project?
Freedom.
Ooh, and what color is the freedom?
White, actually, was the color that I saw. Sort of like almost like this white.
Oh, like this white, okay.
I don't know if it's
Oh,
going to
this
be,
white.
but it's sort of like a, I was seeing white here, yeah.
Nice. It's almost like you're picking up on a frequency. And where is it in your body?
The focus of white is sort of in this area, upper chakras.
Nice. All right. Well, you carry both that imprint as you move forward with the project, with the color, the feeling, the what needs to be expressed. So may it infuse like your interactions with nature to come.
Thank you. Wow.
Completes what I wanted to share with you today. And it's an honor to spend this time with both of you. It's an honor to meet you, EJ.
Yeah, you as well.
That was fantastic. That was really, truly incredible. Yeah.